Hello and welcome to TTELT, Teaching Tips for English Language Teachers. I'm Dr. Gena Rhoades. Let's get started. Today we're going to talk about the tech tip, quick and easy Kahoots. So why should you use Kahoots with your students? There are lots of reasons to use Kahoots with your students. They're a quick way to find out if your students have understood a lesson that you've just taught. They're engaging, so they get the students involved. My students really love playing the games. It's a good break from the textbook. If you're using the textbook too much, it can get dry, and the students, especially when we're online, the students can get distracted and bored when we're just focusing on the textbook. And, they're using their telephones anyway, so it's a great way to get them to be using those telephones in a more educational way. And get them to stop looking at Facebook and WhatsApp during class and use it for something that's more constructive. And one of the best ways I've found is that my students they have been participating more in the class because they know that there's a Kahoot coming, so they get excited and they stay engaged in the class while I'm teaching because they're hoping that they are going to get to play a game that's going to show that they have learned this. So they're very competitive and they want to be able to learn it, and they participate a lot more in the class. So if you're not there already, please go to Kahoot.com and follow it along. So the first thing we're going to talk about is a good way to search for a Kahoot. So you don't have to create the Kahoots on your own. You can search for ones that teachers have already created. You can search for them by theme. You might search for Australia or animals. You might search for grammar points. And this is one way that I often will use Kahoots is to work on grammar points that we have been using in class. So if you've just taught a lesson on present perfect or count and non-count nouns, there are lots of Kahoots that other teachers have already created that you can use to help you know that your students have understood your lesson on that grammar point. And another way that I found to find Kahoots, which is sometimes even better than searching for a specific theme or grammar point, is to search using the textbook that you're using in class. So if say you're using Cutting Edge Pre-Intermediate Unit 3, you do that search into a Kahoot, you're going to find at least 3 or 4 games that have already been created by other teachers that are specific to that unit. And so that you can use those right away, or they'll require less editing for you because they're specific to that unit in the textbook. So now that we know how to find the Kahoots, let's talk about how to play. First, you need to decide if you want your students to play together or if you want to assign a challenge for them to play on their own. And you can do these, so you click assign if you want to have them play on their own. Okay, if you decide to play together, you need to then decide if you're going to do classic or team mode. Now there are lots of reasons to do either one. You're going to need to use classic mode if you're playing online because each student needs their own device. Okay, however, team mode is also great if your students are in a physical classroom, especially if not everyone has a device or not everyone has data for their device. So, and it's also can make it a lot more fun and cooperative. If you don't want them to be competing individually, you can have them be competing as a team against other team members in your class, and you can even do competitions between separate classes. So you can have your class teams compete against other class teams. Keeps a little more setting up, but it's a lot of fun. Okay, so in order to play, you're going to share your screen. Your students are going to go to kahoot.it and then they type in the game code and their name so that they can play the game. And once everyone's in, and it'll give you a click of how many students have signed in, then you press start and then you're ready to go. If you want to assign it as a challenge, first you have to decide when you want the challenge to end. You send the link to the participants. You can either put the link in the chat box or send it to them on WhatsApp or email them the link so that they'll have it, and let them know when it's going to end. So if, say you want it done before class time the next day, so you just set it to end before the class ends the next day. And then your students are ready to go. This is a great way to play if you want to review something that you've taught the students previously, and have them compete against their classmates. Another way we're going to talk about playing is a way that I recently started playing with my students, and they really liked it. It's a little trickier to get to ghost mode, but ghost mode is another fun way to play Kahoots with your students. First, you need to click on reports, and that's in the top of the screen in the middle. And then when you get to reports, you find the game that you want to play. You go to the right side of the screen and you'll see the 3 dots, and you click on those 3 dots and press play again. And when you press play again, you'll see that the ghost of the students who played that game previously will already be in there. And then your students sign in again to play against their ghost. Students really liked it, and they loved, even your students that are not the best students in the class, they get really excited that they're doing better than they did last time. So they're doing better than their ghost in the game. And so we were really excited when we did this. My students had played this game 2 weeks before, but we were getting ready to take the test that included a lot of the things on the test. So they played against themselves, and they were really excited that by the end of the game, everyone had beat their ghost, and everyone, in addition, had beat the ghost of the top student in the class. So they were really excited that they were able to beat the ghost of that student. The last way we're going to look at today is practicing on your own. And this is really fun for yourself. I use it myself, French, and you can also tell your students about this mode so that they can play the games on their own. They don't have to wait for you to set up a challenge or to play in class. They can practice on their own. So now that we have finished learning about how to play with your students, you might find that when you find a game that you want to use with your students, that you want to edit it a little. It's easy to edit a Kahoot that you find. The first thing you need to do is decide which Kahoot you want to edit. Click on the dots that are next to the star. So whether you have the Kahoot still in a list, you can click on the star on the far right side of the screen, or if you've already clicked on the Kahoot that you want to edit, you'll see that there's a star and 3 dots in that Kahoot as well. And then once you click on those 3 dots, you're going to click duplicate, rename, and then edit. And if you've already clicked on the screen, you might see the blue edit button there, and if you click that edit button, it's still going to tell you to duplicate, rename, and then start editing the Kahoot. Because if you're using somebody else's game, if you're editing from a game that's not your own, you're going to need to create a duplicate copy of that game so that you're not editing the game that that person created. Okay, once you've done that, then you get to change the questions, the timings, the answers, all of those things you can change any way you want within the Kahoot. And one of the things that I do a lot is right now while I'm teaching online is I change the timing. My students are playing at home and they might not have strong internet, and I'm finding that sometimes if the Kahoot has a really short time, like 10 or 20 seconds, by the time the students get the page to open up on their phones because of their internet connection, the time's already gone, and then they don't get a chance to answer the question, and I don't get a chance to know if they understood that question or not. So I'll go in and change the timings to 30 or 60 seconds so that everyone's got a chance to participate. Make sure that you click done when you are finished editing so that you save all your changes, and then you're ready to play that game. The next thing we're going to talk about is if you want to start a Kahoot from scratch. If you want to make your own Kahoot, then you go to create in the top right hand corner of the screen. It says create, and that's where you can create your own Kahoot. Choose a template and then enter a title in the upper left-hand corner that's asked you to put your title. So put the title for whatever you want to call this Kahoot, and then follow the guidelines of the template, or if you're just creating it on your own without a template, just start adding your own information. And then, of course, click Done so that you can finish it later if you want to make more changes. And it'll save as a draft. So don't feel like as long as you click Done, you don't have to finish it all in one sitting. So if you just wanted to start a Kahoot now while you're listening to this episode, then you can go back to it later. So let's talk about what we've learned about Kahoots in this episode. It's easy to search for and edit previously created Kahoots. Creating your own Kahoot isn't as time-consuming as you might have thought. And of course, Kahoots are an engaging and effective way to do informal assessments in almost any class with almost any textbook or theme. So try it in your classroom and let us know how it went. We'd love to hear from you, so send us a message at anchor.fm/TTELT. And now it's time for you to try. You're going to do a Kahoot challenge. The challenge link is in the notes. And because I always use the free version of all of these games and tech tips that I use with the students, it has a 50-player limit. So if the link doesn't work and you send me a message telling me that the link wasn't working, I will send the link directly to you so that we can start a new challenge and 50 more players can start playing. I'll try to keep track of the links and not let that happen. But if it happens, send me a message and I'll repost the link. Okay, so click on the link in the notes now and let's play. I hope you're enjoying that challenge. TTELT is a podcast that drops every Thursday at 11 a.m. GMT, which is currently 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And it's a YouTube channel every Thursday at 3 p.m. GMT, which is currently 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's also small group workshops about engaging teaching tips. It's one-on-one consultations for people who would like more personalized teaching tips. So if you'd like to participate, please join our Facebook group at TTELT or send us an email at tteltinfo@gmail.com. And now I'd love for you to hear some feedback that I recently received from a workshop that I did with some teachers in Nicaragua.
Hi everyone, so from Nicaragua. I teach mainly adults, and I've attended a lot of like webinars or Zoom meetings and things like that to learn, right? However, I've loved this one the most because it's actually giving me like material in the sense of what games and activities to do with students.
Thank you very much for that, Jera. So if you want to join the TTL team and have a tip that you'd like to share, a journal article or blog that you'd like us to read and discuss, want to recommend someone to be interviewed, or if you just have questions, comments, or suggestions, then send us a voicemail at anchor.fm/TTELT, an email at tteltinfo@gmail.com, and please go to our website, ttelt.org, where you can subscribe to our podcast and our YouTube channel. And as I mentioned, I'd love for you to join our Facebook group, TTELT, and follow us on Twitter at TTELT1, on Instagram at t.telt. And now it's time to thank our patrons. And because this is episode 1, we currently have one patron, and I think it's amazing and awesome that our first patron is my partner, Rob Chislett, because he is always my biggest supporter in every crazy idea I come up with. So thank you, Rob Chislett, for being the first patron at patreon.com/TTELT. And if you'd like to become a patron and help us to provide the podcast, the YouTube channel videos, the workshops, and the one-on-one consultations for teachers all over the world, then please go to patreon.com/TTELT and become a member. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.